Be your own contrarian. Psychological framework. Creating your personal sentiment indicator. Successful contrarian investors share a common trait: the ability to act opposite to prevailing sentiment extremes. Genuine opportunities often emerge when making the correct investment decision feels emotionally impossible. Whether buying during periods of maximum pessimism or reducing exposure during euphoric conditions, the psychological difficulty of these actions is often what signals their value. By systematically documenting your personal psychological responses throughout market cycles, you essentially create a custom sentiment indicator, one that reflects your individual perspective and experience. An effective approach is to implement a once-a-week journaling practice, with each session taking just a few minutes. Focus on briefly capturing key elements, current market conditions, relevant price movements during the week, and your immediate emotional response to these developments. Record whether your impulses aligned with or contradicted your established investment framework. Several emotional states deserve attention. Anxiety, manifesting as persistent worry about potential losses, often emerges during early downtrends. When this intensifies to the point of considering liquidation despite no changes to your investment thesis, it may indicate a sentiment extreme. Conversely, excitement over quick gains often appears during early uptrend phases. When this excitement escalates into an urge to increase position size beyond your risk parameters, a local market top may be near. Fear of loss and fear of missing out offer valuable insights. Is your primary struggle watching your holdings decline or watching others profit while you're on the sidelines? Relief and regret are also worth noting. Consider a trade you nearly executed but didn't. Perhaps the trade goes opposite to your anticipated direction and you feel relieved that you didn't enter it. Or maybe it would have been a big winner and you feel regret. Recurring emotional patterns like these are worth observing. Identifying your neutral state. Effective contrarian decision-making requires identifying your personal neutral state, a balanced mindset characterized by the ability to articulate both bull and bear arguments, a willingness to consider opposing views, and comfort with your current position sizing. In this mindset, the primary drivers are analysis and strategic frameworks. This state doesn't require absence of physiological arousal, increased heart rate, or heightened alertness. Can coexist with objective analysis. The critical factor isn't eliminating emotions or physical responses, but preventing them from dominating the decision process. Creating pre-commitment rules. A powerful contrarian tool is the use of pre-commitment rules, specific actions you commit to taking under certain defined emotional conditions or market scenarios. These allow your rational self to guide your decisions when emotions might otherwise prevail. Effective pre-commitment rules are specific rather than general, objective rather than subjective, and designed for immediate implementation. A good approach is to list multiple if this then that rules. Consider a scenario where you want to manage FOMO during a precious metals market bull run. Here, you could, for example, write down a rule that if you end up checking price more than 5 times daily or are experiencing urgency to increase positions, you will instead reduce your silver paper exposure by 10% to capture some gains. For managing fear of loss during Bitcoin corrections, you might have a rule stating that if price declines and you feel strong impulses to liquidate, despite no fundamental changes to your thesis and your position sizing remains balanced, you will instead hold on to the position and potentially consider deploying a small amount of reserve capital according to your established entry framework. Exact framing and implementation of rules will depend on your own market analysis and strategy. The key is to know in advance how and why to apply them when scenarios do emerge. Extreme case scenario planning. True contrarian opportunities often emerge during market developments that deviate substantially from average expectations. Contemplating various extremes reduces the psychological shock when these actually do emerge. Having mentally rehearsed both catastrophic declines and explosive rallies, you're less likely to make impulsive decisions when experiencing these conditions in real time. By thoroughly considering what would happen if your assets declined 50 to 80% or appreciated 300 to 500%, you often identify overlooked risks or strategic adjustments. For precious metals investors, extreme negative scenarios might include confiscation policies, punitive taxation, or technological obsolescence reducing industrial demand. Extreme positive scenarios could involve monetary system reconfigurations, substantial currency devaluations, or widespread institutional adoption exceeding available supply. While gradual long-term scenarios deserve thorough consideration, short-term market shocks also warrant dedicated preparation. Sudden vertical price movements up or down, perhaps coinciding with unexpected news, geopolitical events, or market liquidity issues, create unique psychological pressures that can lead to impulsive decision-making. Design a set of rules in advance that dictate how you'll respond based on the scale of the move and the asset involved. Practical implementation. Implementing the psychological framework requires several practical steps. First, establish a simple system for journaling across different market conditions. A good approach would be to use a few minutes per session, perhaps once a week. Second, define your neutral state. Observe how often you remain in this mindset. Note any deviations, instances where your emotions took control. Third, write a list of pre-commitment rules for both emotional deviations and market irregularities. Write down multiple if this then that points. You might assign each point a 1 to 3 grading to reflect severity of scenario or deviation. Keep the list concise enough for you to recall what action to take when a situation actually materializes. You can also complement the list with a few basic rules to apply to entirely unexpected novel events. Fourth, identify trusted counterbalances, methods, rules, or frameworks that provide an objective perspective during emotional extremes. Simply disconnecting from the internet for a few hours is an example. Fifth, overcommitting capital to assets will eventually trigger emotional stress. Implementing a balanced staking approach is essential for maintaining psychological resilience. In case of doubt, dividing your stake size by 2 is a simple but perfectly valid approach. A self-aware contrarian framework transforms psychology from a liability into a strategic edge. By becoming your own contrarian signal, tracking your emotional responses, creating proactive rules, and planning for extremes, you no longer follow sentiment. Instead, you observe it, document it, and use it as a tool for better decisions.